Head of Global Education for Unity Technologies, Megan Stewart.
Hello. Hello, hello. Everybody hear me okay? Okay. I'm going to... Wow, thank you for staying to the end of the day on the second day of a conference. I very much appreciate it. It's kind of rare. So I'm going to talk about a lot of our education programs, actually. And I'm going to, when I'm explaining it, explain why we're trying to cross disciplines in terms of how students are able to use these technologies, not just in gaming, but in other discipline areas, so for architecture, et cetera. But more importantly, I think we can talk about how that's wonderful and fabulous, and yes, conceptually we know that, particularly people at this conference. But more so, how are we as Unity going to try to actually help get that done, rather than just point out what should be done or what could be done. So I'm going to talk about some of our education programs. And I just want to point out, I mean, this is a pretty sophisticated crowd, and certainly are experts around education. And I also, put this out here to say we'd really like to be able to work closer with you for people who want to engage with us in a variety of different ways, both on an advisory board, being on betas of certain education products, on overall products. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity that I think people don't realize that they can work with Unity if you have an opinion and you want us to do certain things and want us to do more around education. And that's really why I'm here. So let me, just talk about a few of the things we're doing. And then at the end, I want to make sure to give an opportunity for people to ask me questions, comments, ideas. So I assume everybody knows who Unity is. Anybody not know who Unity is? Okay, so I'm not going to give you the overview of that. We're a pretty big community. We're one of the, obviously, the largest technologies used in game development. There's a lot of great technologies out there, and we're growing quite rapidly, not only in terms of the amount of people using our tools, but also just in the size of our company. Because as more people are using it, obviously there are more features and more resources and things like that that people want to leverage from Unity and have us also produce. So we've literally doubled in the past year and a half in size, mainly in engineering, development, but also in the education and training area. And of course, because as quickly as you expand, you need resources out there to help people learn the technologies. And particularly in education, where students want to, they see these games out there, and particularly also in virtual reality, is how do we build this stuff? How do I, and the age-old question of, if I'm a teacher or faculty member, I can't be an expert in all these technologies, so how do I integrate this into the curriculum? What kind of things can you provide us to do that so that students can be creative and really start to develop the skills that can help them in their workforce. I was at Adobe for many years, Macromedia, and it really is kind of a consistent thing that always happens, right? These new technologies come out and give great creative tools to our students who pick it up so quick. I mean, that's been a consistent theme of this conference. And where it used to be, nobody laugh, Flash as a, it's not terrible, but everybody laughs. I swear it was a good technology at some point. But I was used to people building games with that. And now with Unity, it's just pretty fantastic. This authoring tool is out there for students to learn. So, the founding principle, again, of Unity is about democratizing the development and game development. And it really is part of the kind of the ethos of the company. And it's to give easy access, although, fine, I'm going to admit it, you guys, as we grow really fast, there's all these things we need to do in order to get the tool out more to people. And sometimes, there's stuff that goes on about like trying to actually get it if you're a school or an institution. And we're working really hard on making it easier and more available to people. It is one of the more intuitive learning curves for students to pick up. I mean, there's some fabulous tools out there, and Scratch, those kind of tools are fantastic. I mean, they start to introduce those type of skills and just what's possible to students at an early age. And Unity is one of the progression levels in if students want to learn more and start to do more and build more things. But again, this is a industry collaboration in making these technologies available to students. And again, there's different entry paths in here and different ways and paths to go on here. And we all should be supporting both schools and faculty in doing this. So again, our group is really committed to building both teaching and learning curriculum, both for using the tools in context of K-12 and relevant to STEM initiatives and areas, and also on more of a vocational path. So more of actually learning the tool if you want to go directly into game development. So we're trying to provide this globally and aligning with standards and helping to keep the content relevant. So I'm going to talk about some of the things we're doing. And again, we're also at kind of an early stage of really trying to listen to the community and what's needed and what we can provide as an education group. So one of the things we did last year was to introduce a secondary license. And that's been pretty successful because it's free, it's a grant, and that's to any K-12 secondary primary school globally. And we've literally deployed 64,000 licenses in a year. So it's hard to actually say exactly how many students are using it because so many times they're in labs, and they rotate obviously a lot. So that's hundreds of thousands of students that now have access to Unity in the schools. So we're pretty happy about that and plan to obviously continue and extend those type of programs. Is anybody from a K-12 school or secondary school who's used this? Did you know? Excellent. Did anybody know we did this? Yeah, you can have the best product in the world, but if nobody knows about it. So that's a challenge also. That's why we're at all these education conferences, is to get the word out better about the things that we're doing for education. So again, the areas that we're focused on are both curriculum and courseware, professional development, obviously training, certification, which you may have heard about. There's a lot of discussion about that. No matter whether we were Adobe or at Unity, certification is always a controversial kind of thing, so happy to hear your thoughts on it. We've been deploying this in many, many countries. We're still in the early phase of this and have some other programs around this that I'll be talking about. And then also partners, and I'm not sure how many people are from universities here, but one of the things we want to do is enable you to be authorized training centers, provide certification to your students, deploy different programs around that, and for us to show you guys as a partner whatever you need in terms of pointing people to your programs, also just highlighting the success of your programs. So the other key area that we're focused on, which of course is critical, is really helping to align industry and education. And this is always critical, and you guys, if for those people in both industry and education, this is something that's important to both of you because you want, as education, your students to be successful and learning the actual skills that are going to be needed and relevant in the workforce. And also as industry, you're looking for people to hire. And my goodness, I mean, it is shocking how much of a demand there is for people with Unity skills, game development skills, but broader, softer skills around that too. How to work in a team, understanding the collaboration that happens and the dynamics that happen. And in particular areas that we're hearing a lot about is understanding the business of gaming, of understanding how to use analytics, how to measure and understand the success of your game or your project before you publish it. And so that comes to us a lot. Obviously, we get a lot of requests from that of what are you doing to help the industry? What are you doing to help education understand what industry needs? So again, we're at the infancy of that, but we really encourage you guys to engage with us. We have advisory boards with industry, advisory boards with education, and with education, it's important that it's not, I don't want to say just, it's not just top tier R1 universities who we're trying to listen to, but also community colleges, vocational schools, high schools, because it's all of those needs. I mean, certainly there's a trickle-down effect in terms of what's industry doing? What are the leading game programs doing? And how do we, how do we follow some of the best practices to understand how to build our programs? So obviously that's really important that we are listening to all areas of education. So the areas that we're focused on, we came out with a developer certification. Has anybody heard about that? Oh, thank you. It was, love the game industry. Everybody's very vocal, so we certainly got a lot of feedback. I know not everyone wants certification. It helps a lot in education, and it helps in terms of just showing foundational skills. So we are actually doing more. We're not saying this, you have to have this as Unity. Certainly not. It certainly helps in education to have an endpoint, some level of assessment there. So some of the other areas we're focused on right now is doing professional level programmer and more on the technical artist side. But then there's a lot of areas like analytics and VR that are changing rapidly, and yet we still want to provide resources out there and some way to have people be able to know that they've passed a certain level of an introductory course with like badges, that kind of thing. So we're working on that, trying to be very understanding and relevant of the fact that things are changing so fast. But basically, we're just trying to get the information that's in Unity out to the public more and easier to access as programs in education, or for just learning and teaching. And so that you'll start to see more of these coming out through the end of the year. And again, these are the areas that we really appreciate everybody in the industry and in education working with us. So, as I mentioned, we came out with the certification, and we also just came out with the courseware. And our courseware aligns to the certification. It's self-paced, it is very modular, and it's designed to help both people do self-paced, as well as if educators want to use a module, say in lighting, or a whole range of different areas in the game production foundational skill level to supplement your own courses. And this was a lot of feedback that we heard from educators in terms of resources that could help them and help their students have more specific content as they won't necessarily go deep into certain programs or not have the time to go deep into certain programs, and that Unity should be providing better information about. So that is, that's actually available now, and if anybody wants to, we obviously provide it to education to preview and obviously want feedback. So again, the big focus is how do we help students understand, what is industry asking for, and how do we provide education with better communication and access to industry. So as I mentioned, the certification, if anybody was curious about what is about 100 questions, it is a proctored environment, which is why we, of course, allow education to proctor that themselves. And if anybody's training center, we're actually signing up partners to be able to provide certification of courseware as well. And that'll be, obviously, the whole line of resources we'll provide in terms of the additional courses, like around VR, et cetera. So if anybody is interested in that, obviously, there's a lot of very great programs out there that we would love to give you guys access to do this and give you guys insight to the programs in Unity. And as I mentioned, the certification, the developer courseware, all the information's online if you want to look at exactly like what the outcomes that we have, what the modules look like, and evaluate it as well. So there's a lot of other stuff that we have. We have a curricular framework that aligns to ISTE standards, a lot of the global standards that can be used. A lot of ministries of education are using it to align with their own curriculum, and all that stuff's free. If everybody's been to the Learn site that we have, it's where you see a lot of early content coming out around VR, around analytics, that we try to push out as quickly as possible and then try to align it more into a framework for education. There's a huge amount of resources on there, lots of recorded training sessions. We'll be actually starting in education, a conversation series with people in education specifically who are teaching, who are experts in their areas, and do that as a webinar where you can obviously ask questions, give information. So if anybody wants to volunteer to do things like that or give us ideas on who you'd like to hear from, certainly you'll be able to hear from people internal to Unity, but also we want to have really experts out there in the industry talking to our customers and talking to people interested in getting into game design and development. So the other area that I'm pretty interested and excited about, because education's been really excited about, are our hosted services. Has anybody seen any of these? So analytics, a product we have called Collab. Anybody? Well, what's cool about, say, for example, Collab, is obviously it's a collaborative team environment to work on projects. And as they opened up the beta, about 70% or so are people in education, are universities and schools. It's a natural environment for people to want to learn, and they've been giving so much great feedback. I mean, it's really helped to form the product and about the kind of things that they could do. And that was always something, even at Adobe, that was really successful, was to get education and people in classroom environments involved in giving feedback at all stages of the product development. Because you can make a lot of impact to product teams just by engaging. I mean, I don't know if anybody, Adobe Connect, Captivate, those kind of products, those products were really driven by people in education and training. And again, giving that kind of feedback to the product teams at early stages really does show you can have a big impact on what companies like Unity provide. So I really do encourage you to do that. The other area, analytics, I think is a really fascinating area. It's really become obviously around, big data, LMSs, you name it. Analytics is so big, but obviously analytics in gaming is so fascinating too, not only in terms of understanding how and where your people are progressing through, or your customers are progressing through your product, but getting data in terms of, how do you add new features? How do you develop this product further? And so you're seeing a big trend right now and a big request to us from a lot of universities is they're wanting to develop programs around, and there are quite a few classes around this, around the business of the business of gaming. How do I start to teach this with my students early on so that they understand constantly how to measure, adapt their games to really focus on the right customer. And at the end of the day, the majority of what is out there is obviously people building games and they're wanting to monetize it, but also just in terms of if you're doing, building an experience rather than just a pure game. It's a great way to create a sort of adaptive model around constantly iterating on your content and experience. So I'm really excited that this is available. It's free with education. It's free with the personal editions. There's certain levels you can get in terms of space and storage, but again, it is available, and I think there's some exciting things that we're going to see happening, particularly around analytics and education. Has anybody use that at all? I think you're my new favorite customer up there. So as I mentioned, there's a range of different ways that we want to partner with people, obviously from the advisory boards and in education, and particular, as I said by description, which actually got customized to, I was going to talk completely around how we're being used in a lot of different disciplines, but we want people representing different areas of where we're going to see a lot of impact, particularly in the VR area. So architecture, obviously, is a huge area. Home design, you saw that earlier, medical, certainly a huge amount of stuff going around serious games. The government is doing so many amazing things. I can't believe I just said that. No, they do amazing things. The government is doing amazing things around serious games. So there's some partners of ours that, for example, are using Unity around building VR environments and just training modules around helping to train our troops about defusing bombs. You don't get much more serious than that, but literally there's so many applications for this, and I think VR just takes it on to a whole different level of the kind of training that is going to be able to be done, both, not just in the military, obviously, across a whole range of different areas. So again, I think having people, representing that area, showing what can be done, it's very much, there's so much happening across there, and you heard in so many of the sessions around medical imaging, surgery, all sorts of different things that are happening around this. And again, that's why companies like Unity, companies that do other tools, around this industry, us getting resources out just to help people learn, provide the tools is obviously critical, because I think we're just going to see an explosion of demand. Even right now, it's hard for us to, even though I sit right next to the VR lab, finding resources to develop content of people really experienced in VR is a challenge. So as I complain, everybody looks at me and goes, okay, what are you going to do about it? So again, why we want to get as much of this content out and how people can learn best practices around these emerging technologies. Oh, and as I mentioned, that also is helpful for us to have partners who can do this, who we can provide information to for people on the website, who can train this, who can give feedback and get resources from us and give feedback to us. So I wanted to give a couple minutes for people to give feedback, but if you'd like to be involved in an advisory board, we have both industry and education. Some people are obviously at sort of a guidance level. Some are like, I want to work with you on the competencies around some of these certifications. We appreciate all feedback and interaction with people. We have a lot of different top groups that we have engaged with, different product groups like analytics and collab and other areas. There's just a variety of ways to get engaged and to get, obviously yourself heard in Unity and to be heard. And then obviously the training partner program. And most importantly, please tell me what you're doing. I would absolutely love to showcase the work on Unity, Made with Unity. There's so many programs. Made with Unity on our site. So showcase site, we're building out an education site. And obviously we have just great practices going on there. So if you guys have good examples you want to share with us, we would love to give you guys more exposure around that and work with you as well. So please email me directly. And with that, can I answer any questions for anybody? Everybody ready to head off to the first cocktail party? Yes. Yes. So true, the workflow of obviously Adobe Autodesk bringing in the tools, that's one part of it, and we're trying to give a lot of best practice of how to optimize it. But I believe we've been talking about at the different Unite conferences and GDC tool sets that you're going to see coming out, and stay tuned this fall. You will be hearing a lot more about that. They don't let me out much because I have a big mouth. Anybody? Yes. Hi. New favorite customer?
Yeah, my name is Drew. I'm a Unity developer, but I also teach at a community college in a red state where a lot of the decisions are made around funding. And I noticed that you have, well, as you showed, a great program for K through 12 institutions, which is wonderful. It's really great. I've seen a lot of people take great advantage of that as well. But I find that at our institution, there's some anxiety, there's new sort of terms for licensing for professional customers. And I was wondering whether terms might change for higher education as well, or if that would be dealt with on an individual basis.
Call me. No. Yes, but we are working out programs that will customize more to higher education, particularly in the subscription model, because while industry, corporate companies want everybody to move to subscription, I mean, the public companies are driving it a lot. It's much easier to stay and keep up to date. Education, it is much more difficult in terms of the funding and where you get the funding from and predicting funding. And so that's something we're constantly trying to work with right now and are in the middle of working with right now to make sure that what we deliver, new licensing models, et cetera, can be not on a one-to-one basis. I mean, obviously we could do that, but we want it to be more obviously broader, so not everybody has to call us directly to do these programs. So you're definitely going to hear more about that as we move forward. And honestly, that is one of the areas that we actually do use our advisory board a lot about, because we have a range of different, obviously private institutions as well as public, and it's amazing that corporate companies just don't understand the nuances of deploying in a lab, funding. And it's relevant, obviously, globally. It's the same thing of using CapEx and variable out of Ministry of Education. So building up our education group and constantly, having these conversations and saying that this is not going to work for education is critical, and also critical to have the backing of our boards to talk to the companies. So yes, we are definitely working on that and trying to make sure that we create models that'll work. Sure. Anybody else? Yes.
Speaking with other educators who teach college students, introduce unity to non-computer science students who may be learning a programming language such as C# for its time. Criticism of the scripting tutorials that the teacher learned previously is that they're actually geared to someone, it seems, with the assumption you already know object-oriented programming language. So I'm just curious if you're remapping that, so in a sense, it's going to be more accessible to people without that background.
So that's a good question, and we've heard that a lot, particularly, obviously, in education. And I think that one of the things we're trying to do is not have to have Unity be the end-all, be-all of you have to follow our curriculum products or our projects the whole way through, but to find the right partners that we can point to say, here are really great curriculum resources, programs, obviously OER type resources to learn pathways in. And we have this whole learning pathway model that we're working on to point to recommended resources and programs to get people introduced to that. And I think that's really important because with the size of group we have, you can't do a bunch of stuff well. And finding people and partners that we can say, hey, look at these guys' program, here's some great curricular projects. There's great online courses in Udemy and other areas to point resources to. And certainly in the education area to point to things that have already been done well and people have already mapped to that. So I'd very much encourage you to contact me so we could talk about that, because we're part of a big community, and again, want to make sure that it's recognized that there's a lot of things going out there that are great and that we support. And it's just like there's a lot of great visualization tools that can be better entryways into a product, particularly for like primary and secondary, Scratch, those kind of things. We would never say, no, use Unity first. That may discourage students from getting into it if it's the first thing they see. So I think that's something we're continually evolving and would really appreciate feedback on. Yeah.
You said there was a license that you got for your school?
Yes. You email Unity, and I didn't put the regular education one. You can even go through me, but if you just go to our website, under education, there is I believe it's a form, and you just fill that out for your school, and then people internally basically fill out the form and then send you the licenses. They just validate it's a K-12 school or primary, secondary school. But yeah, it's all on our website. Anybody else? Well, thank you. This is the first time in history I've ever ended a minute and 40 seconds early. Usually I'm getting, the hook off the stage. So thank you very much, and appreciate you guys coming.